Only when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish been caught, and the last stream poisoned, will we realize we cannot eat money. There are two wolves fighting inside all of us. The first one is evil, the second one is good. Which wolf will win? The one you feed. When you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. It is better to have less thunder in the mouth and more lightning in the hand. Listen, or your tongue will make you deaf. Seek wisdom, not knowledge. Knowledge is of the past, wisdom is of the future. The weakness of the enemy makes our strength. Do not judge your neighbor until you walk 2 moons in his moccasins. They are not dead who live in the hearts they leave behind. There is nothing as eloquent as a rattlesnake's tail. It is less of a problem to be poor than to be dishonest. A brave man dies but once, a coward many times. Make my enemy brave and strong, so that if defeated, I will not be ashamed. The bird who has eaten cannot fly with the bird that is hungry. Cherish youth, but trust old age. Wisdom comes only when you stop looking for it and start living the life the Creator intended for you. Not every sweet fruit gives birth to sweet grass. Take only what you need and leave the land as you found it. It is no longer good enough to cry peace. We must act peace, live in peace. When a man moves away from nature, his heart becomes hard. Beware of the man who does not talk, and the dog that does not bark. Our pleasures are shallow, our sorrows are deep. It does not require many words to speak the truth. Don't let yesterday use up too much of today. If a man is as wise as a serpent, he can afford to be as harmless as a dove. Poverty is a noose that strangles humility and breeds disrespect for God and man. Remember that your children are not your own, but are lent to you by the Creator. Walk lightly in the spring, Mother Earth is pregnant. Ask questions from your heart, and you will be answered from the heart. There is no death, only a change of worlds. What is life? It is a flash of a firefly in the night. It is a breath of a buffalo in the winter-time. It is as the little shadow that runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to live a life of purpose, one that echoes beyond the fleeting moments of today? For centuries, Native American proverbs have carried timeless truths, offering guidance not just for survival, but for thriving in a world that often demands we conform. These words, born from the earth and whispered through generations, hold a special resonance for women who have fought, risen, and redefined strength in the face of oppression. As a young American philosopher, linguist, and storyteller, I see these proverbs as more than ancient sayings. They are a call to empowerment, a roadmap for women to break free from societal chains and embrace their boundless potential. Drawing from real-life struggles and triumphs, let's weave these lessons into a narrative that speaks to the heart of every woman seeking freedom, resilience, and self-discovery. Picture a young woman named Sarah, growing up in a small rural town in the 1990s. Her days were shaped by unspoken rules: be quiet, stay small, don't question the way things are. But inside her burned a fire, a hunger for something more. One day, she stumbled across a weathered book of Native American proverbs in her school library. The words, only when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish been caught, and the last stream poisoned, will we realize we cannot eat money, struck her like lightning. She thought of her mother, working long hours in a factory to put food on the table, her hands worn from labor yet her spirit unbroken. Sarah saw the truth. Society had taught her to chase money, status, and approval, but those things couldn't nourish her soul. This proverb became her awakening. It wasn't about rejecting wealth, it was about prioritizing what truly sustains us: connection, purpose, the earth beneath our feet. For women like Sarah, and for so many of us, this is a reminder to stop chasing what society dangles before us and start feeding the roots of our own strength. Then there's the battle within. There are two wolves fighting inside all of us. The first one is evil, the second one is good. Which wolf will win? The one you feed. Think of Maria, a single mother in Los Angeles, juggling two jobs while raising her daughter in the early 2000s. Society told her she wasn't enough, too poor, too uneducated, too tired to matter. The evil wolf whispered doubt, shame, and exhaustion into her ear every night. But Maria chose differently. She fed the good wolf with small acts of defiance, reading to her daughter despite her weary eyes, speaking up when her boss tried to short her pay, planting a tiny garden on her apartment balcony. That wolf grew stronger, and with it, so did she. This proverb isn't just a metaphor, it's a psychological truth women know well. We've all faced that inner war between the voice that says you can't and the one that says you will. Empowerment begins when we choose which voice to nurture. And what of legacy? When you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. In 1970s Alabama, Ella, a black woman and civil rights activist, lived this truth. She marched, she spoke, she endured threats and beatings not for herself, but for her daughters and the generations to come. When she passed in 2010, her community wept, not out of pity but out of gratitude for a life so fiercely lived. Ella's story mirrors what so many women have done, turned pain into purpose, built a world that mourns their loss because of the light they gave. For modern women, this proverb is a challenge to live not just for today's applause, but for tomorrow's tears of our. Strength isn't loud, as we learn from it is better to have less thunder in the mouth and more lightning in the hand. Consider Aisha, an immigrant from Somalia who arrived in Minnesota in 2015. She didn't have the luxury of grand speeches, she had a family to feed and a language to learn. But her hands told her story, cooking meals for neighbors, sewing clothes to sell, teaching her children the value of hard work. Her quiet lightning lit up her community, proving that power lies in action, not noise. Women have long been told to speak less, but this proverb flips the script. It's not about silence, it's about impact. Our hands, whether they write, build, or hold, carry the thunder society often denies our voices. Listening, too, is a radical act. Listen or your tongue will make you deaf. In the 1980s, Janet, a teacher in New York, noticed her female students shrinking in class, their voices drowned out by louder boys. She could have lectured them on confidence, but instead she listened. She heard their fears, their dreams, their quiet strength. By creating space for them to speak, she helped them find their own power. This proverb speaks to women who've been talked over, dismissed or ignored. Listening to ourselves, to each other, is how we reclaim our voice, not by shouting louder, but by hearing deeper. Wisdom over knowledge is another gem. Seek wisdom, not knowledge. Knowledge is of the past, wisdom is of the future. Take Priya, a tech worker in Silicon Valley in 2020. She had degrees, accolades, a corner office, but felt empty. Knowledge got her the job. Wisdom taught her to leave it. She started mentoring young women of color, sharing not just facts, but insights on navigating a world that wasn't built for them. For women, this distinction is liberation. Society prizes what we know, our credentials, our titles, but wisdom is what we live. It's the courage to look forward, to build a future that doesn't repeat the past's mistakes. Empathy anchors us in do not judge your neighbor until you walk to moons in his moccasins. In 2018, Lynn, a Vietnamese-American nurse in Texas, cared for a patient who snapped at her daily. She could have written him off as rude, but she learned he'd lost his wife and was drowning in grief. Lynn's patience turned his anger into trust. Women are often expected to judge quickly, to gossip, to compete, but this proverb calls us to walk beside each other instead. It's a feminist act, understanding the unseen battles others fight, especially when those battles mirror our own. Memory keeps us alive. They are not dead who live in the hearts they leave behind. In 1990's Chicago, Rosa, a community organizer, fought for affordable housing until cancer took her too soon. Decades later, her name still echoes in the homes she helped save. Women like Rosa teach us that death isn't an end, it's a shift. Our legacy lives in the daughters we raise, the sisters we uplift, the communities we strengthen. For every woman told her work doesn't matter, this is proof it does. Honesty outweighs wealth. It is less of a problem to be poor than to be dishonest. In 2008, during the financial crisis, Carla, a single mom in Detroit, refused to lie on a loan application despite pressure from her bank. She lost her house but kept her dignity. Society often pushes women to bend the truth to please, to survive, but Carla's choice reflects a deeper strength. Poverty can be endured, dishonesty erodes the soul. This proverb is a shield for women navigating a world that sometimes rewards deceit over integrity. Courage defines us. A brave man dies but once, a coward many times. In 2014, Malala Yousafzai, shot by the Taliban for advocating girls' education, embodied this. She didn't just survive, she thrived, turning fear into a global movement. Women face death not always physical, but emotional, social, spiritual every time we define norms. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's the choice to die once, boldly, rather than 1,000 times in silence. And finally, life's fleeting beauty. What is life? It is a flash of a firefly in the night. It is a breath of a buffalo in the winter-time. It is as the little shadow that runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. For every woman who's felt small like Sarah, Maria, Ella, Aisha, Janet, Priya, Lynn, Rosa, Carla, Molo, this is a reminder of our brilliance. Our lives are brief, but they blaze. They warm the cold. They dance across the earth. In a society that often dims our light, these proverbs call us to shine anyway, to rise, to empower, to live free.